There once was a beautiful girl, with very long, golden hair down to her ankles. Liliana was an only child and the daughter of a high-profile couple. Liliana's parents were the governor and governess of a state. Unlike most other 17-year-olds, Liliana was restricted from ever leaving her estate, unless heavily guarded by the Secret Service. Her room sat at the top of a turret within the governor's mansion. The windows wrapped just about all the way around her bedroom, giving her a panoramic view of the estate's large acres. Still, Liliana felt like a caged canary from day to day as she looked out those windows. Two of those windows were actually glass doors which opened up to a small balcony. The balcony offered a small tease of freedom. Still, Liliana's loneliness and isolation consumed her. Then came the day. Finally, when Liliana's parents sent up a fashion designer to her room, she was instructed to come up with a ballroom-type dress. The event was called the Governor's Ball and happened once a year. Unfortunately, Liliana was deemed too young to attend any of the previous balls, but finally, she was allowed to attend. With excitement, Liliana helped her designer come up with the perfect dress, one with a mermaid design that sparkled underneath the lights. It was mature, yet modest. When that evening finally arrived, Liliana looked stunning, with her hair partially up in a bun while the rest hung in golden locks, all the way down past her thighs, and her pale skin glistened under the lights, as her dress, fitting her form perfectly, sparkled like a disco ball. That evening, all of the state's finest politicians and elites were under one roof. It overwhelmed Liliana. How many people surrounded her, as she wasn't used to this, ever. Making it even more nerve-wracking was the many young men who looked close to Liliana's age, if not a few years older. One in particular stood tall and slender in his crisp, white tuxedo. His hair was dark and kinky, matching his dark brown eyes. His skin was the color of milk chocolate. Liliana soon found out from eavesdropping that the handsome young man was the son of one of the town's mayors. He was also in his first year of college, which would make him around 19 or 20. While all the young men were looking at Liliana, she was looking at him. Soon, he realized such and made his way over to Liliana, confidently, but smooth. "My name is Thomas Cooper. And you?" he said, reaching his hand out to her. I'm Liliana Roberts," she replied, shaking his hand, which was enormous compared to her hand. "Would you like to dance?" Thomas, 19, tall, dark as milk chocolate and handsome in his white tuxedo, requested. Nervously, Liliana, 17, white with golden hair down to her ankles, in a sparkly white mermaid dress, nodded. She had taken many ballroom dancing lessons growing up, but now she would be put to the test. Sensing her nervousness, Thomas whispered, "Don't worry, I got you. Just follow my lead." After that, the pair danced together all evening and into the night. They talked, they laughed, they sang together, all while dancing. Before she knew it, hours had flown by them both. Liliana's father interrupted them eventually and introduced another young man to his daughter. He was quite handsome and he was the son of a congressman, but to Liliana, that meant nothing. She was quite annoyed that her time with Thomas had been cut short. "I'm Ben," the new young man said while they danced. "I heard our parents want a union between our families." Liliana's mouth dropped open at this. Her parents were really trying to marry her off as if it were the olden days, or the Middle East. After spending years trapped in her birdcage of a room, her parents get to choose who she'd be trapped with for the rest of her life, too. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you," Ben interrupted her chaotic thoughts. Liliana gave him a courteous smile, just before Ben spun her round. Midway, Liliana caught Thomas's eyes before she spun back into Ben's arms. She could see out of the corner of her eye, Thomas watching her, but so were hers and Ben's parents. As soon as the dance was over, Liliana excused herself, saying she needed a drink. Ben offered to get her drink for her, but Liliana politely refused. Then, she made her way back over to Thomas, who by then was casually engaging in small talk with another young woman. As soon as Thomas saw Liliana coming, he politely disengaged with the young woman and immediately focused back on Liliana. Thomas reached his hand out, Liliana grabbed it, and off the pair went to the outdoors. Liliana had certainly never been outside under nightfall before. To say she was intrigued was an understatement. Though there was Secret Service men surrounding the perimeters, Thomas and Liliana still had a few acres of land to explore, and explore they did. Even in her expensive custom-made gown and his expensive rental suit, they didn't mind running through the field, then into the forest surrounding the estate. Liliana had never felt so free. At some point, the pair suddenly came across one of the Secret Service men staking out in a tree. Along the property line, they ducked behind some brush, shushing each other and trying not to laugh out loud and give away their position. "We could get shot," Thomas said, serious but trying to seem tough for Liliana. "Well, at least I won't be stuck up in that bird cage," Liliana replied, chuckling. "That's your room way up there?" Thomas asked, pointing to the lit-up room at the top of the turret on the mansion. "Yes, that is my cage," Liliana responded, dismayed. Thomas felt her joyful spirit declining as he quickly changed the subject. Eventually, they made their way back out of the woods. As they stood in the open field under the moonlight, Thomas pulled a twig out of Liliana's hair as they both giggled. Thomas leaned in slowly as he and Liliana stared deep into each other's eyes. Just as they were about to kiss under the moonlight, they both heard the distant sound of chatter. "The ball must be over," Thomas frowned. "They opened the ballroom doors," Liliana said, dismayed. Quickly, Thomas helped Liliana make her way hurriedly across the field until they reached smooth ground. Again, back in front of the mansion, Thomas and Liliana said their goodbyes. As he was pulled away by his parents, she felt so empty after Thomas left. That couldn't be the last time they met. She had to see him again. But soon, her parents were ushering Liliana back up to her tower. The turret started on the 3rd floor, at which point the stairs led to a giant bathroom on the next level. Then a few more steps up was her walk-in closet on the next level. Then the rest of the stairs led to her room. Of course, Liliana was allowed to roam her own home, but she had strict rules preventing her from exiting her tower past 1 p.m. Reluctantly, Liliana gave herself a bath before turning her lights out, then went to her room. She stared down at the yard she and Thomas had just been exploring. She smiled, then turned her lights out. The next day was a normal day for Liliana, as she went through the motions of breakfast, dressing for the day, participating in French lessons, breaking for lunch, then continuing after lunch with more lessons. Liliana felt dead inside. It wasn't until dinner time, after being told to dress up, that she finally came out of herself. Sitting at the dinner table was Ben, his mother, and his father, the congressman, along with Liliana's parents. She immediately knew what this dinner was going to be about, and why they had her dress up. Ben pulled Liliana's chair out for her, but instead of saying thank you, Liliana simply nodded. "Is something the matter, Lily?" her father asked. "Yes," Liliana blurted out. But before she could further object, her mother cut her off. "It doesn't matter. Not now, at this table," her mother stated firmly. So, for a while, Liliana begrudgingly let the dinner go on, without a protest. It wasn't until dessert was brought out that they began speaking about the matter at hand. After each parent made a mini speech, professing their commitment to their children's best interests, Ben replied first. "Well, I feel that we would both benefit from getting to know one another first." Liliana couldn't believe how easily he was persuaded to the idea of their arranged marriage. "Was this your plan all along?" Liliana shouted. "To keep me trapped in this mansion, up in that tower, so that nobody else could find me except for who you had planned for me." Tears streamed down her face as she stood up and ran from the room. She ran all the way up to her room. Eventually, her mother came up to her room with a stern look on her face. "Liliana, you are going to be a grown-up soon. We don't expect you to marry and move out now. But give Benjamin a chance. He would at least be good dating practice for you over the next few years until you're ready." Liliana's mother began brushing her long, golden hair. To her, the compromise was a win. But to Liliana, it was still a horrible deal. How dare they keep her caged up all her youth, just to then use her for their political pursuits? Was that all she was to her parents? A political pawn? But Liliana didn't bother arguing with her mother any further. It was pointless. Instead, she submitted to her mother's words outwardly. Inwardly, though, Liliana was devastated and feeling hopeless. After turning her lights off, she climbed into bed and flooded her pillow with tears. But within minutes, her tears were interrupted by a dinging noise. Immediately, Liliana quickly wiped her tears away, sat up in bed, and sniffled as she tried to identify the source of the noise. Then it happened again. Ding! A stone smacked her window, right next to her balcony. Cautiously, Liliana threw her robe on and made her way out to her balcony. Upon looking down, she immediately recognized him. It was Thomas. He stood out in the yard below, smiling up at Liliana. "What are you doing here?" She smiled ear to ear. "I've come to save you from your bird cage," Thomas shouted in a hushed tone. Then, he pulled out a rope ladder from behind him. "Is that safe?" Liliana asked. Thomas smiled, replying, "Only one way to find out." They both giggled. Then, Thomas took 3 tries of throwing the rope ladder up, before Liliana finally caught it. She firmly tied the ropes around her balcony rungs, and Thomas began climbing up to ensure its safety before she tried it. While he was climbing up, Liliana quickly changed into simple clothes. Once Thomas poked his head up over the cement banister, she ran over to him excited. After helping him over the banister, Thomas quickly pulled the ladder up. "You look like you've been crying," Thomas said, wiping a tear from Liliana's cheek. Liliana tilted her head into Thomas' hand. "We could just stay here and talk for tonight if you want instead of going out." After some thought, Liliana responded, "Will you lay with me?" Thomas licked his lips, thought for a moment, then agreed. "But your pops won't come up here and shoot me, right?" he asked. "No," she replied. "They never check on me. Plus, you don't have to worry about them hearing us, because this turret is an extension of the mansion, meaning below me is my walk-in closet, and below that is my bathroom. Then the stairs lead to the 3rd floor of the mansion." "Wow," Thomas replied. "You live in a real-life castle." "More like a real-life prison," Liliana responded. After that, Thomas lay curled up behind Liliana on her bed, holding her while she poured her heart out about her situation. All night they talked, played games together, laughed together, and before they knew it, the sun was peeking over the horizon. "I better go," Thomas said. Liliana looked sad once again. "But don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow night, same time," he said. Then, it happened. Thomas went in for the kiss and Liliana reciprocated with heated passion. It was her first kiss. Ever. Then, he climbed back down the rope ladder, had Liliana untie it, and ran back the way he'd come the night before. The next night, they did the same exact thing. But by the 3rd night, Liliana's parents began to wonder why she was sleeping all day. "Tomorrow is Monday," her mother said. "Benjamin is taking you on a date at 5 p.m. Make sure you are ready and dressed well." Liliana rolled her eyes when her mother turned back around to leave her room. By that night, she told Thomas she was ready to leave her turret and leave it for good. Thomas, though he was really into her, let Liliana know that they would have nowhere to go. "I just started college," Thomas said. "I couldn't provide for you the way that he could. My father is only a mayor, not a senator or congressman." Liliana looked at Thomas with erupting sadness. "So, what, I am supposed to just stay here until I am old enough to be sold off by my parents?" She cried. Thomas wiped Liliana's tears away, tenderly, then held her in his arms. "No," he replied. "I won't let you. I promise I will be back to save you when the time is right." Together, Thomas and Liliana cried in each other's arms for most of the night. They confessed their love for each other before Thomas climbed back down his rope ladder. Liliana watched him as he took off into the woods, away from her prison, away from her. Over the next few months, Liliana went on her forced dates with Benjamin, though she still felt dead inside. After a year, though, she was in full robotic motion. She graduated high school. Her parents threw a graduation party for her, and Benjamin came to celebrate. But no sign of Thomas. By the end of her freshman year of college, Ben proposed to Liliana. He had become a confidant of sorts, though she still didn't love Ben. Yet, with her parents and his parents watching, Liliana knew that she was expected to say yes. And when her parents threw a ball in honor of their engagement, she knew that she was on the right road to their idea of success. Since Thomas had came and gone from her life, Liliana felt hopeless. She felt as if her life wasn't her own. Her father had been voted into office for a 2nd term during her 2nd year of college, and by her 4th year of college, Liliana was primed and trained into the perfect Robert's offspring. According to her mother, she was ready to be bid off to Ben and his elite family. The wedding was to take place June of her 1st year out of college. Instead of starting her career, Liliana was searching for a wedding dress, right on schedule. For months leading up to the wedding, Liliana cried herself to sleep up in her turret. Eventually, the governor's annual ball took place. By then, she had given up all hope about ever seeing her Prince Charming again. Though it made a brief appearance in her mind, it disappeared just as fast. That year, Liliana, who was now a mature young lady at 22, wore a beautiful, simple, black dress with lace and silk. Her hair was all up in a large bun this time. She had danced several times with Ben, which was expected. But when they weren't dancing, Ben was enthralled with his group of friends. He barely paid her attention. "I guess this is what our marriage will be like, too," Liliana thought. Just then, the massive ballroom doors opened up. The whole room stilled as a tall, muscular man with milk chocolate skin and a neatly shaven afro walked in, his parents on each arm. He wore a very expensive suit and looked very sophisticated from head to toe. Whomever he was important. That could be told just by his energy. Several elite guests immediately walked up to shake the man's hand. "Who is he?" Liliana whispered to one of her assistants. "He is the founder of the Cooper Group, a prestigious group out of New York." The assistant responded. "Many of these people hold high-stake contracts with him." "Cooper?" Liliana asked herself. Could he be? Then, they locked eyes from across the room. She immediately recognized his glistening brown eyes. Likewise, he immediately recognized her bright blue eyes and golden hair. It felt like the entire room disappeared as Liliana and Thomas broke through the crowds, inching closer together. When they finally met, they immediately began dancing. "Are you still unhappy?" Thomas whispered in her ear as they danced. "Yes," Liliana said without hesitation. "They are still forcing me to marry Ben." Thomas spun Liliana around. "And did you say no?" he asked her. Liliana thought for a moment, then replied, "How can I? This is my entire purpose, no?" Thomas twirled her again, catching her from behind as he whispered in her ear, "Purpose is what you make it, princess. But I told you I would be back to save you, and here I am." He twirled her again, meeting her face to face this time when she came twirling back to him. "You're right," Liliana replied. "I have a say in my own life." Just then, Liliana's father came over to her, as her and Thomas slowed their dancing down. "Sweetheart," the governor said, "don't you want to be dancing with your fiancé?" He pointed to Ben, who was still laughing with his friends. Liliana and Thomas never took their eyes from each other, as she responded, "No, sir, Daddy. I'm right where I want to be." After that, Liliana and Thomas continued to dance, leaving the governor to look stunned. At another point, Ben's father, the congressman, told Ben to steal Liliana away from Thomas's arms. That was when Ben finally took notice of Liliana, and how close she seemed to be to her guest. Ben recognized Thomas from years before, and now that he was older and filled out a bit more, he had no problem confronting Thomas. Ben, along with two of his big, stocky friends, made their way menacingly toward Thomas and Liliana, who were still dancing together. "Excuse me, but why are you dancing with my fiancé, holding her that close?" Ben said, hands on his hips. Thomas and Liliana continued staring into each other's eyes, but came to a halt. Before Thomas could reply, Liliana turned to Ben and said, "Ben, I no longer wish to be engaged with you. Here is your ring." The crowd around them, which had also quieted to hear what the commotion was about, gasped in unison. Liliana's mother immediately shoved her way forward, yelling, "Liliana May Roberts, what is the meaning of this?" Before Liliana could respond this time, Thomas stepped forward. "Ma'am, if I may, I have been in love with your daughter, Liliana, for several years now. I am no longer just the son of my town's finest mayor, but I know I am very successful." The crowd gasped again. Liliana's mother looked Thomas up and down, then replied, "Young man, I see what you have become, but there is a reason beyond what you could provide, a reason that goes into future generations, for why we picked Benjamin to marry our daughter." "But mother," Liliana immediately responded, "you promised it would be my choice. If I gave Ben a chance, which I have for many years now, you told me it would be my choice." Liliana's mother looked astonished at how her daughter was talking to her. She was finally defending herself. That is, until her father came through the crowd. "Lily, if this is what you truly want, there is a time and a place for that discussion, privately." Liliana looked around for the first time, and became embarrassed by her father's words. She looked at Thomas with tears in her eyes, let go of his hand for the first time, then took off running through the crowd back to her turret. As she ran out the steps, past her bathroom, then past her walk-in closet, and finally to her room, she buried herself in her many pillows atop her bed. She could just picture her parents making an excuse to their many guests, and going back to everything as if it were normal. She knew they didn't plan on giving her a choice, whether privately or in public. It was hopeless. Little did she know, Thomas had his own plan. As he stood in the same spot on the dance floor, where everyone had been gathered until just moments prior, when the Roberts asked them to go back to the festivities, he contemplated how to react. Then, Thomas gathered his parents, and just before leaving, he told the Roberts, "I will be back for her." Little did they know the way in which Thomas would come back for Liliana. The next day, her parents never came to talk to her. They even had her dinner sent up to her room. She was truly a prisoner. Part of Liliana thought that Thomas would have come back with his rope ladder and saved her from her tower. But after weeks of hearing nothing from him, Liliana began to give up hope again. She continued going through the motions of dating Ben, and watching her mother pick out things for the wedding as if it were her own. Whenever Liliana and Ben were together, he never even asked her once about her true feelings. He acted as if that explosive night had never happened. So, she asked him, a week before the wedding, "Ben, do you really want this?" As they say at a table in a fancy restaurant, Ben took Liliana's hand. "Yes, Liliana, I do." And that was that. He didn't even ask her the question in return. Then, the night before the wedding, as Liliana cried herself to sleep again, she dreamt of a different life, a life of freedom, a life with Thomas. But he must have figured it was too much trouble being with Liliana. She didn't blame him. The next day, Though very busy, Liliana was like a stuffed doll, just going through the motions. The church was set up. Her custom-made wedding dress was perfectly tailored, and all of her parents' elite friends were in attendance. Liliana and Ben's wedding would take place up on the balcony of the church. It was basically the second floor, but the center was open to below on either side of a bridge walkway. It was her mother's dream wedding. But while Ben waited at the front podium next to the minister, and as everyone stood to watch Liliana walk down the aisle in her beautiful dress, suddenly a man came to whisper in the minister's ear. The minister went pale. Then he nodded to the man. By the time Liliana got to the front of the church, where Ben and the minister stood, the minister put his hand up as if to speak. Then he did speak. To everyone in attendance, please accept my apologies. But there has been a sudden change of events. It seems this church has been bought out just now at a very, very good price. So, what is the meaning of this? Liliana's mother raged, her face turning red. Before the minister could say another word, 2 ropes were suddenly slung up over the banister. Liliana smiled as she immediately recognized what they were. She ran over to them and quickly tied each one to the railings securely, as the guests in the pews behind her murmured in confusion. Then, Liliana stepped back without looking over the banister. She already knew. So, she waited in eager anticipation. Sure enough, Thomas came crawling up the rope ladder and climbed over the banister with his own strong arms. Once he was over the banister, Ben immediately shouted security as Liliana ran over to hug Thomas. Don't bother, Thomas said confidently. They work for me now. In fact, I own this church and this town. Liliana blushed. How? Liliana's father asked. Because I can, Thomas replied. And now, I'm about to buy this wedding from y'all, depending on the answer to my question. He got down on one knee, pulled out a big diamond ring, and asked Liliana to marry him. She immediately said yes, 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 as her and Thomas kissed. Ben shoved his way out of the minister's hold and charged at Thomas. Thomas stood in front of Liliana to shield her, but instead of a punch, as Thomas anticipated, Ben just charged into Thomas, pushing him backwards. The momentum made Thomas thrust backward into Liliana as she flew over the banister, to everyone's horror. But being smart as she was, Liliana had held onto the rope ladder on her way down. Thomas and Ben both ran to look over the banister, relieved that she was safe. Then, Thomas helped her back over the banister after she climbed back up. Now, Thomas exclaimed, if y'all don't mind, I paid for a wedding, and I intend to marry my bride. The mouths of guests dropped, followed by murmuring. Then, surprisingly, Ben said, congrats, Liliana. You always knew we weren't meant to be. Then, he and his parents left. Mom, Dad, are you staying for my wedding? Or not? Liliana asked sincerely. To her relief, both of her parents sat back down. That day, Liliana became Mrs. Thomas Cooper. Thomas continued to be successful and created generational wealth as well. Liliana and Thomas lived happily and had many children together. Her parents soon came to love Thomas just as their daughter had.